Hello my friends, and welcome to the grand tournament for Steel Faith Overhaul 2. My name is Pride, my channel is Milk and Cookies Total War, and throughout September, 32 players will be goring, mangling, and generally burninating each other's polygons on the battlefields of Total War Warhammer 2. And it's guaranteed to be a good time. So, quick recap for those of you who are unfamiliar with Steel Faith Overhaul. It's one of the most popular mods on the Steam Workshop that does whatever it can to accentuate the differences between races, taking whatever makes a unit or faction unique and cranking it up to 11 to better reflect the spirit of Warhammer rather than the stats of the tabletop. Single entity monsters like dragons are more terrifying than in vanilla, with vicious breath attacks and punishing melee capabilities, but are quite a bit more expensive as well. Now, picture something like a Wood Elf Waywatcher, for instance, and think about what makes that unit unique. Long range, high accuracy and armor piercing, essentially the best archer in the game, right? Well, all those attributes have been amplified in SFO, and pretty much across the roster, units function just a little bit differently than their base game counterparts, with some more unique abilities and passives thrown in for good measure. Elves are lower in number with higher stats, dwarfs are even tankier, the Empire has punishing range firepower, and elite Chaos Infantry becomes pound for pound some of the scariest in the game. I mean, it's an overhaul, so pretty much everything is tweaked or changed in some way, but the individuality and flavor of these units is, for the most part, retained or amplified, and it can make for some very exciting battles. So, signups are open right now, and it will be closing on August 31st. I've linked the Google Doc and information in the pinned comment and description, so you can follow along as we go through, but let's cover how this tournament is going to work. So first off, you're going to want to join the SFO public Discord. Drop your nickname in the tournament channel, and send Venrus a private message of the 3 races you want to play throughout the competition. Each round is a best of 3, and you can only play each of your chosen races once per round. I actually wanted Venrus to experiment with a rule set where you had to play every Warhammer race once before you're allowed to play with a race for a second time, and the idea behind that was basically just to ensure whoever won the event had a good understanding of many different races and wouldn't be able to just pick the 3 most powerful factions and bulldoze his way through the tourney with the same builds every round. And it also would have opened up some mind games where players had to choose whether to use their best armies early on and have a better chance of advancing, but not have access to those in the later stages, or hold on to their really powerful stuff for when they need it the most. But apparently people didn't really like that idea, which I understand, but hopefully that doesn't mean we see everybody picking the same 3 factions and using the same 3 builds every round, because certainly from a spectator's perspective, we want to see variety and many different kinds of tactics on display. And the rules should help do that somewhat, but maybe not to the extent that I wanted at the beginning. That's not really a big deal. I think it's going to work out just fine. So a lot of this rule set has actually been adopted from Shetland Apache and the Warhammer Cup, so big props to him for all he's done with the competitive Total War community, and the majority are pretty well established rules in tournaments across the board, so I think it's going to work out very nicely. You've got to have at least 250 models in your army. This is a big one. It prevents people from spamming giant Death Stars or single entity monster mashes with no support units whatsoever, and generally those aren't as much fun to watch or play. You don't take a lot of micro, so it'll be nice to have that there. You can have a max of 4 single entities, including heroes and lords, again, to prevent some of that gooning and spam of high mass units, and there's a max 4 of the same unit rule in place as well, which does not include weapon variants, so you can have 4 Dwarf Warriors and another 4 Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. That's completely fine. And then there's also a max 5 cavalry rule. Max 1 hero, so you can't have 2 necromancers and your lord summoning like 21 zombies and skelly boys with a higher SFO wins a magic pool, for example, and max 2 regiments of renown. Now that one in particular I find very interesting. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that used before in a tournament, but I think it might end up being very good overall. Generally speaking, RORs are more powerful and more expensive in SFO, and seeing entire armies built from them is a bit jarring, maybe a bit imbalanced. I'm not 100% sure. Honestly, I don't think anybody fully knows the extent of the multiplayer balance in SFO. It's just a much smaller pool of players playing there, so it'll be very interesting. I think we're all going to learn a lot after this tournament. But more than anything, I think that the max 2 ROR rule set will help out Lizardmen and Skaven quite a bit, and hopefully promote faction diversity a bit more as well, because obviously Lizzies and Skaven don't have their regiments of renown right now, and won't until what, like January of next year, which is really dumb. But anyway, I'll have to see it in practice, but I think that's a good addition. I like that rule. ultra unit size, because that's what the mod is balanced around, 20-minute games, best of 3, and no cheese allowed. Can't stress that enough. If you do something like bring all flyers and hide a ground unit in the back forest somewhere, you're probably just going to get booted right away. Nobody wants to play against that. Nobody wants to watch that. If you're planning on playing, do not cheese. Do not be a dickhole. It's that simple. This is for entertainment first and foremost. Prize pool isn't that massive. Your EPing will not be enhanced by laming out opponents or being a douche. Fight fair and square, and it should be a good time for everyone involved. Which is not to say you shouldn't try to win or focus on your faction strengths. Wood Elves naturally have a kite-heavy playstyle focused on mobility that can be a bit more frustrating to play against. I mean, overall, we know that Wood Elves, if they're played really well, can be super annoying to fight. But you don't have to suicide into a Chaos Rush army just because someone doesn't like being shot to death. As long as you're shooting or actively trying to outflank and gain an advantage over a player, you're good to go. Now, Steel Faith is not a competitive multiplayer-focused mod, obviously. It is entirely possible people are going to find some broken or overpowered stuff throughout the course of the event, and the player skill might be a little lower than something like the Ever-Chosen Invitational, because I don't think we're going to have Soothsayer or any of the very top multiplayer guys playing in this one. But what I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a level of unpredictability and wildness that comes from experienced campaign players utilizing all the new toys and changes that come with the mod. I think there are going to be some really crazy games, and this next set of rules I'm about to cover should make it a lot more fun for both players and the people watching replays and live streams from home. I believe these are also straight from Shetland Apache's rule set, so let's go over those now. So, the first one is that each player is considered to be an attacker, as both must actively engage in combat unless one of these conditions is met. One player has artillery units to harass the enemy from a distance. Obviously, if you have artillery, you're still attacking your opponent. You shouldn't have to just run into melee if you've got a bunch of arty. You're allowed to sit back in that instance. Or one or both players have skirmish units to harass the opponent's front line before the main engagement begins. If you have archer cavalry, if you have units that have mobility that have some kind of range attack, you can use those to harass, and that does count as attacking. One or both players using their caster's missiles or their ranged spells, but the rest of the army cannot retreat during that harassment, so that's an important point to note as well. This means that both players at all times must be doing something aggressively to outmaneuver or damage their opponent. It should severely cut down on camping and hiding, which should make everyone happy because nobody wants to play against that, and again, nobody wants to watch that either. Draw kiting sucks. It's obviously banned. This is when people purposely run around the map like an idiot to avoid engaging. And basically, if you only have cavalry and flyers left, you have to be the one to seek an engagement because someone with infantry can't catch you, and you can't run around aimlessly trying not to fight. Can't have the mobility advantage over the opponent and never engage until the timer runs out, and you cannot hide units while having air superiority until the timer runs out either. That should be pretty common sense, but important to get that as a ground rule laid out right now. Obviously, if you have routed units coming back and you're trying to rally at a central point, so you want to get back all your units around a lord, that's perfectly fine. Or if you're maneuvering in the opening stages of a match, that's also not going to get you in trouble. But the later the match goes, if that other stuff starts happening, that ain't good. Judges will ultimately be the deciding factor on whether someone is cheesing or draw kiting, and that decision will be final. So if they make that call, you're going to have to live with it. Cycle charging is when a player has the mobility advantage or single entities with high mass left on the field. And to kind of counteract this a little bit, at least one unit must remain engaged in combat and is not allowed to disengage if there are no other allies currently fighting. So if you have a bunch of cavalry units, you can't just send in one Grail Knight over and over to continuously cycle charge. You're going to have some cav unit at any given time engaging while the rest pull out if all you have left is cavalry. And the frontline infantry cannot retreat while the cavalry or single entity units charge the opposing force in advance of the main clash. So you can't bring like 2 peasant men-at-arms, hold them in the back, run away to the edge of the corner, and then just cycle charge somebody into oblivion with Grail Knights. You have to move your infantry forward or keep them still so they can close those units down and engage them in a timely manner. And then of course there's corner camping. Nobody likes it, don't do it. Due to the way maps are kind of designed in Warhammer Total War, there are artificial bounds that no units can pass through. It's the red line in Shogun, and I guess in Warhammer it's the white line. And So we don't want to have anything to do with like moving up against the white line and preventing your opponent from doing stuff there. So sitting in a corner with the main army while forcing the opponent to advance with artillery or skirmish superiority is not okay. You can't run to the corner of the map and then turn around with your arty and start shooting. You have to start shooting from wherever you are. You can find a better position, but you can't move up against the white line. And using the map's artificial bounds so that the opponent can't get around the flank or rear is obviously not allowed either. That's really gamey, really cheesy, just gonna get you banned if you try to do it. But you can, of course, use in-map environmental terrain or other kind of features to your advantage. So if there's a rock outcropping or a cliff or something, obviously you can use that bottleneck to prevent your opponent from flanking, as long as it's not the white line, the edge of the map itself. So those are the rules. It sounds like a lot, but when you look at the rules, it's very clear. Most of it is just common sense, right? If you plan on playing, be respectful, don't be a douche, don't bring spammy armies, and everything should work out just fine. I imagine the majority of the people who watch this channel or other multiplayer channels have a good idea of what constitutes cheese and kind of ridiculous over-the-top play that nobody wants to watch, so don't do that, and it'll be completely fine. I will be live streaming the semifinals and the finals and casting the replays of some of the more exciting battles from earlier in the tournament. And if you can, try to throw some curveballs our way. Like if you're planning on playing and signing up, throw us something interesting. Use some out-of-the-box builds or faction picks, and you might be able to catch an opponent off guard, which would be fun in and of itself, but that could also very easily get the crowd on your side as well, and that's going to be a great time. Now, the tournament will begin September 1st and run through mid to late September with a $20 prize for third place, a $40 prize for second place, and a $120 prize for first, as well as a special Discord title you get to flaunt around when you're in SFO Public. And all other relevant information will be in the pinned comment and description, including the Google Doc, including the Discord. So make sure you go sign up if you're interested in playing. If not, definitely make sure you check out my tournament videos and the live stream. They'll probably happen towards the later stages of September. And I will see you all at the grand tournament for Steel Faith Overhaul 2. Hope you all are looking forward to it. I know I am. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.